In this simulation video, we'll be taking a look at how to utilize an F50 bracket in conjunction with one of our pre-cut S-ledgers with on-center spacing. This will cover the standard method of how the bracket is used to attach a joist at the end of a ledger. We'll also include adding an additional joist for this demonstration that can later be used as part of a blocking setup for railing posts. We won't, however, go into the lateral bracing portion of the blocking setup, as this short demonstration will deal with just attaching the joist to the deck assembly. Before we get started, here's a list of the recommended tools and safety equipment you'll want to have on hand when working with our Evolution steel framing product. Know that all posts must be temporarily braced until fully stabilized and permanently connected with framing or other structural members. For deck frames, this means that all beams, joists, hangers, and any blocking that shores up the structure should be in place before the bracing can be removed. In short, the deck frame should be fully assembled and secured first before bracing is removed from the assembly. We'll pick up the installation process from the point where we've added all our other S-ledgers and ledger brackets to create a flush mount deck setup. When it comes to the ends of a ledger, like this one, you'll want to use our Evolution F50 bracket. You'll mount the F50 bracket by placing it with its shorter two-legged side matched up evenly to the outside edge of the ledger, as shown. Then use 3 Evolution self-tapping screws on the pre-punched holes to secure it in position. We'll continue now by adding our joist to the outside position. Notice that the joist is resting against our F50 bracket and it's flush with the outside edge of our ledger. So we can go ahead and use 3 more of the Evolution self-tapping screws to finish securing this end of the joist to the pre-cut S-ledger. Also, feel free to use clamps as needed for this process, especially if making this connection without assistance. You'll also need to be making the same type of connection on the other end of the joist if this is a flush mount deck. Here again, you'll utilize the F50 bracket to establish the exact same type of connection. The F50 bracket will again be flush mounted to the outside edge of the beam and secured with Evolution self-tapping screws. That way, when we bring our joist in to connect to the S-ledger, we can finish securing this end of the joist also. With our first joist secure, we can now move on to the second inner joist that we'll be using for blocking. Starting back on the ledger side, we'll take a joist and attach another F50 bracket to it using 3 Evolution self-tapping screws. Now is a great time to also take a final look at the positioning for this joist relative to where the inside of where your railing posts might land. After verifying where the post might land, if you're building out a flush mount deck, you'll want to add an F50 bracket on the beam end of the deck. Note that we're attaching this bracket so that the screws will be covered up by the joist. The main reason for this is to avoid having the F50 bracket trying to overlap the single joist hanger bracket. So whether you can turn this bracket inward or pre-attach it and face it outward, this can largely come down to if you have the space available to do that. This is why we did not pre-attach the F50 facing outward on the end of the joist, but instead attached it to the beam. It was so that it would be turned in under the joist, avoiding contact with another bracket. Now, back on the ledger side of the deck assembly, let's look at how this same joist would have been plugged into the ledger and secured. Note that on this end of the joist, we pre-attached the F50 bracket and it's facing outwards for 2 reasons. The first is that our joist is going to be capping these 3 ledger bolts. If it was turned inwards, that wouldn't be possible. The second is that this will allow us to come straight in with an impact drill to add those 3 remaining Evolution self-tapping screws. And that's it. This is how you'll go about making joist connections at the ends of the Evolution ledgers. Which means if you finish this step in the build, you can now move on to add the remaining joists that will follow on center spacing. For more information on our steel deck framing products, including where to buy, stop by our website at fortressbp.com/framing. And don't forget to check out our other Evolution steel framing videos as we continue to help our customers steal the show.